just a moment. Okay. All right. Excellent. Oh, hello. We have. All right. So the audio works, and now the video doesn't feel like working. Well, that's fascinating. Well, I guess that's better than nothing. We'll keep trying this out. We may have an issue with a USB port here, ladies and gentlemen, that is not cooperating. I did have a different adapter here for it. I'm going to try to take out. Let me see. Can I take out that adapter? Maybe that's the reason it's not functioning properly. We're going to figure this out, and we'll get it set here. Oh, that sounded promising. Nope, not yet. Frozen in time. Yeah, exactly. That's where we are right now. What on earth is going on here? Very bizarre. Well, we are going to eventually figure this out. I'll try to vamp here in the meantime while we get the video set up here. But in the meantime, we'll just have it as a audio or a podcast, I suppose, here in the meantime. This is so bizarre. I've just tried this new setup here today, and I'm very pleased with how it's arranged here. But apparently my computer's USBs are not cooperating with this. That is bizarre. Do we get to see the intro a third time? I think that would probably be overkill, but we'll see what's going on here. It's bizarre. I was playing it when the intro started, and I saw that the microphone thing was finally responding, and then I saw the light on the camera was off. So it's like, well, that's not good. How the heck is that? So I almost seemingly had it fixed before the show started, and then it did not. So I'm going to keep trying to figure this out. Might have to use a splitter or something. This is bizarre, because it does seem like the cord is plugged in. Huh. I don't know why it's not cooperating. I just have to keep wiggling it until it kind of works here. And we'll figure it out. If push comes to shove here, we'll fight through it as best as possible here. Okay. Well, that's not ideal, but we'll see here. Hang on. External cam. Make sure I didn't turn that off. Is it muted here? It shouldn't be that. Nope. Okay. It's interesting how it keeps the old phrase there in the meantime. But as long as the audio is working, I guess we can fight through it here, and we'll figure it out. Yeah. So it's not buffering on your end. It's definitely on my end here. Something has gone sideways because the camera worked in the test. We'll mess around with this just a little bit more here, and if we reach an impasse, that'll probably be it for this format here. And I had it pointed just the right way, too. It's not always the way it goes. All right. Well, while I figure this out with one hand, I guess we'll go ahead and multitask here. Thank you very much for those of you who checked out the new video on Larry Foyt that was posted earlier today. The Patreon had advanced access to it yesterday, and the response I've been very pleased with so far. I know it's a little bit different from the content that we had on the channel before. However, I think it should still be something somewhat connected to both the... Okay, I went black for a second. All right. Yeah. No, it's different there. All right. But, yeah, different video from the usual content there, but same in other ways. Still talking about the, still talking about the field fillers, still talking about 2004, but from a different angle. This was actually something I was thinking about putting in a future field fillers episode. And then I had another viewer that actually suggested doing a standalone on it as well. So they'd be kind of rattling around for a little while beforehand. And it's interesting just how that kind of works out. All right. That is not an ideal time for that to stop working. Oh, maybe I can try, hang on. If we can do this in a pinch, can I change the camera to... Ah, here we go. Can I get the webcam? Let's get the webcam up, and we'll just bring this in. Hopefully it's not covering it. Okay. Okay, hey, there we go. Hey, can you guys see that okay? Actually, the webcam doesn't look too bad without this here. Okay, and that's that. Oh, and now, okay, isn't this great? So, okay, now we got that, and now we got the light is back on the other webcam, but it's doing it... no, it's doing it from that camera. It's still doing it from the right one. Okay. Doesn't seem like... All right. Well, hey, better late than never. Okay, good. All right. So, computers, ladies and gentlemen. But we got that figured out. We have a new light on here, too. That's the other thing. I was really hoping that the visuals would work because I want to kind of brighten this up a bit. It really hits the quilt here a lot better. Okay, good. We got video. Fantastic. Well, better late than never. How many live streams have we had on this channel here that have not started at the right time because of one issue or another? But I appreciate you guys staying with me here. All right, so we have quite the show here for tonight, and luckily we have now all the parts that we need in order to make it happen. So hope you've had a great off season here as we now get into the last couple of weeks until the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum in early February. Am hoping on covering that event there. Made some progress there on the credential process this past week, so fingers crossed on that. Also looking at Fontana later that month, and we'll go ahead and jump into that as well. In the meantime, there are plenty of work still ongoing with the videos on the channel there and everything else that's going on. So really, again, going back to Larry Foyt, though, that was a subject that I thought about doing for a while. Certainly, judging from those of you who have seen it, I apologize to be a little bit of spoilers here, I guess, for those of you who haven't had a chance to see it yet. But we'll touch on some elements of it there and hopefully not give too much of it away for those of you who haven't seen it. But definitely a driver that struggled a lot during his Cup Series rookie campaign back in 2003. And I was in college at that time, and so kind of following it more week to week at the time, he definitely stood out as a driver that was really struggling and trying to understand the reason for those struggles. And I never really had a very clear idea of it. I assumed that it had something to do with like the open wheel invasion that did happen later with guys like Juan Pablo Montoya and others that came in there. Certainly you had some drivers that had a great deal more success than others. But Larry was kind of right before that time period and trying to make a name for himself in the early 2000s. I mean, you did have, there's been other open wheel stars that have tried it here and there. But yeah, that would be kind of something else to look at there too. But yeah, it's definitely a story that stands out because, again, you have kind of a youth movement that was in the sport. You had a large number of teams. These are these teams that kind of were built around these rookie contenders generally in 2003 that came in there. Your Jack Sprague, Tony Raines, Greg Biffle, Jamie McMurray, and Casey Mears were, highly favored contenders. And of course they had a variety of success between them as well. But Larry seemed to be the first one of that group to really struggle immediately from that. And certainly his rise through the ranks, I was amazed by how quick it was when I was writing the script that, his first experience to stock cars was in the ASA series just 3 or 4 years earlier, back in 2000. Before that, doing a lot of open wheel racing and kind of working his way up the ladder. And AJ personally kind of took him on this trajectory to try stock cars instead and choose an entirely different career. And certainly at that time, it's understandable. I mean, obviously, if you watch the videos that NASCAR Man did on the split, you'll understand that there was a lot of contention there, a lot of lack of prestige in the sport, because you had like their whole body of drivers just being split up, and not the best drivers were always competing at the Indy 500. It didn't have the same prestige. And so, whereas at the same time, NASCAR was exploding in popularity in 2003, they were on the verge of starting the Nextel era, the playoffs, or the chase at the time, rather. And Larry was very much a creature of that. And so he got put on this different course. He did solid in ASA, but the sponsor wanted him in the Busch series, and then he was kind of rushed through that as well before getting the Cup. And so just in a couple of years, he's a Cup Series guy with very little experience, and he was doing kind of okay, but there was kind of a drop off in performance from one to the next. It wasn't really even in the Truck Series before he got in a Cup Series car. So he was and even AJ in a lot of his quotes indicated that this was something that he was just thrown in with the sharks, just kind of tossed into the deep end and see what he could actually do. But it was an unfortunate deal. I think that's why, and those of you who haven't seen the video yet, it's very much a story, not just of Larry himself, but also of AJ Foyt Racing, when it was getting back into the sport, because that was kind of the thing that was also interesting, is that Larry's entire stock car racing career was at the exact same time that AJ was getting his Cup team back going again. AJ had, of course, run many Cup races, going back even further, was one of the contenders in the 1979 Daytona 500, way back in his career, past 500 winner himself with the Wood brothers, but had his own operation, the number 14 Copenhagen scheme, made it even to the Racing Champions era there, where, it was an iconic paint job, and made that number his own in stock cars, even if he wasn't as competitive in the 90s as he was earlier in his career. But bringing AJ Foyt Racing back in there, and then just changing drivers and all that turbulence there. And again, you'll see that if you haven't seen the video yet, it almost seemed like it was inevitable that Larry was going to be driving that car. But I don't think driver and team anticipated it was going to be quite that soon. And unfortunately, it kind of, we do see this sometimes. We see drivers like Casey Atwood and others that were rushed up there anticipating that, oh, they're going to be the next big thing, or, the sponsor plays a big hand in it. And Larry was very much a consequence of that. And it's unfortunate. And I think that, I think on one side, it's easy to be critical and say, well, heck, I mean, this guy's just not ready for prime time or anything. But he had a lot of demands that were put on him, not just to improve that quickly and the sponsor pushing him that much further, but also the ownership role that he had in those teams, working his way up the ladder as well. That's something that'll be clear if you haven't seen it again as well. That was something also that's ultimately changed his career trajectory to where it is today. So an interesting story. It definitely gave me a better idea of what he was dealing with. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to set up an interview with him. I did extend the invitation. He actually friended me on Facebook, so I do appreciate that. I actually just sent him the link to the video today, so hopefully he gets a chance to see it. I hope that in spite of the struggles he had, I hope it comes off the same way Gary Bradbury reacted with his video, knowing that there were a lot of struggles, but kind of understanding the context of that as well. And this was asked to me a little bit earlier today, if this is going to be more of a trend on this channel. And I'm ready to say yes. I think that I do have some other scripts that have come together over this off season, which is another reason that there's been such a long lag between the Andy Belmont video and Rise of the Field fillers in September and this one now. This one actually came together very quickly, even though it was during that same delay. I received the message from a viewer I believe it was in December. I want to make sure I give credit to the right person here. But I received comments on that as well. And I started to work on that over the New Year's weekend, and just kind of had the same idea about actually doing something on it. Let's see here. Where was it? Oh, I thought I had it right here. I think that was it. Nope, that wasn't it. Was it Ian? I think it was Ian here. Yes. So big thanks to Ian for being the person who suggested the video on Larry Foyt. And then in January, basically around the New Year's weekend, I kind of started doing some research on it, and it came together very quickly. At that point, over the holidays, I was hoping to get interview with Hermie Sadler for that video. Obviously, that's very difficult to do with the holidays and everything going on there. And actually, at that point, I'd already written the script for the next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers after that, and they couldn't get a hold of that person. So that's another big reason that this was kind of lagged back as far as it was. So I decided to pick a subject where there would be enough content on it where if I didn't get an interview on it, I could still kind of get a really solid video out there that was, worth the time that it's been since the Belmont video. And I think the Foyt one was a great choice. So again, thank you to Ian for the suggestion and definitely putting the video together on that one. That one came together in 15 days, which is lightning fast for me. It usually takes me quite a bit longer, but I'm very pleased with the results on that. And I hope those of you who haven't seen it yet, I hope you definitely get a chance to check it out here as well. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I did pick up an old hero card of his, and I'm glad I did because that actually cued me into a little bit of information about Sam Bass designing the paint scheme as well as the team uniforms. I still think hero cards are one of the best, bits of information that could actually get you some little details, especially if it's from another time, like 15 plus years ago, like that one. Definitely in doing my research, if there's any kind of material like that I could get my hands on, I'll usually jump on that as well. And a lot of people usually scan those too. I couldn't get too many scans that were very clear the backside of it, so I ordered one there. But that one, every once in a while you'll get little bits of information that kind of gets you on those leads, and then you get a good story together. And I'm pleased with how that came together. So I hope that it looks like it's we passed the 1,000 hit mark on it today. Hopefully it keeps going on there. We're very close to 14,000 subscribers as well. So I want to say thank you again to everyone who's supporting the channel on that as well. So we've been making progress on that. We're up to 55 people in the Patreon. I have already ordered the door magnets for the 2 races in February. There are going to be separate door magnets on our rental car for both the Busch Clash and for Fontana. So those of you who are in the Patreon, you'll have 2 chances to win the drawing for each one separately. So that's still on there. I already have a couple names I need to add onto those since they were ordered. So very excited with that. And big thanks to those of you who've been on the Patreon there as well. Those of you who are in the $10 level, there is some bonus Larry Foyt content in there as well for you guys. I put a supercut together of the 2003 qualifying laps that Larry Foyt had that was used in the video. So that has the original audio in there. Big thanks to Dave W. and the other YouTubers as well who have chronicled a lot of that old qualifying footage. I think that's tremendously helpful in any of these videos, especially talking about drivers in the early 2000s, where you can get a lot more footage of these drivers and teams in between. So big thanks to them as well. Charles Peterson, yeah, you raise a good point too. Yeah, preview guides as well. I didn't think to look at a 2003 press guide, but yeah, same kind of deal there too, talking about drivers and teams that get featured, especially with the anticipation coming into the year. So there was no shortage of excitement behind Larry back then, but an interesting story and interesting paint schemes. That's always been a scheme that I've always had a soft spot for. It doesn't surprise me that Sam Bass designed that there. I think I like the purple with the yellow accents better than the yellow with the purple, but definitely see for yourself in the video. And big thanks to Brian Hallman, of course, to BRH Racing Archives, who again, on very short notice, I will add, contributed some fantastic pictures for the video there. I know I didn't give him a very long turnaround on that, but he produced a tremendous amount of pictures there, driver shots and car shots, all the way back to his ARCA career as well. So those are also included in the video. So definitely check those out in the video itself. So yeah, so there is, so I get a lot of questions also on the Rise of the Field Fillers, of course, touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the stream here while messing around with the camera and everything. So the next video that I am going to be working on is going to be the Hermie Sadler episode of Rise of the Field Fillers, which, yeah, has been in the works since September. I am just now reviewing the script, making sure to kind of tighten it up a little bit, get it to where it needs to be. The Foyt script went through kind of a few drafts even after I recorded it. So that was kind of another thing that I was working on. But the Sadler one, I'm not going to worry about interview. I'm just going to kind of get that one finished. I have the audio clips already selected, so I think once it's recorded, it'll come together a bit quicker. I'd like to get that done before the Clash. I think that's kind of the goal at this point. If not, certainly Super Bowl weekend, maybe kind of do it during that. The other thing you'll notice is that when I did the Larry Foyt video, I didn't do a YouTube premiere. I think I've been kind of overusing that function lately. I did it even with the Gary Bradbury interview, which I think people didn't mind too much, but I think it's more special to just kind of reserve that for Rise of the Field Fillers, because that's kind of the signature series. That seems to be the one that everybody's has the most questions about, and understandably. And I'm certainly more excited about putting those together too. But yeah, so whenever the Sadler video is done, there is going to be a premiere set up. There will still be, of course, advanced access for anybody in the Patreon at levels $5 and up. And we'll have some more information on that as we get closer. But I am looking to stagger episodes of Field Fillers with shorter videos on underdog and driver profiles. Similar in structure to, yeah, I mean, again, as you see with the Larry Foyt video, it actually kind of follows a very similar structure to Rise of the Field Fillers, just not entirely focused on 2004. Of course, in this case, it was something that was focused much more on 2003. But yeah, I have other plans for other videos that are going to be shorter ones. Yeah, and also possibilities of getting some interviews done for those as well. So that's kind of the plan right now. Get the Hermes Sadler video done, hopefully early to mid-February is kind of what the goal is on that. Do another short video after that, the other episode of Field Fillers that I have the script set up for after that, and kind of stagger them from there. And then, of course, by then the season will be started. We'll be doing these live streams at the end of each race. The one for the Busch Clash will be kind of up in the air because I'm going to be over trackside there. We'll either do something at the hotel or we'll do something when we get back from that race weekend to kind of break all that down, because I'm sure there's going to be no shortage of information about that once we get down to that too. So, yeah, so that's kind of the big part of that one too. If you guys have any questions about Larry Foyt, I'm definitely open to that as well. Let me re-engage my mouse. I was trying to get this working. Hopefully that doesn't interfere with the camera. Okay, good. It didn't. All right. So, yeah, so we got that all there. We got my Bills hat on there for sure. I saw the comments there, Kyle, there. Thank you for joining today. Yep, definitely enjoy. That's why I didn't do this stream the earlier over the weekend there. Definitely enjoyed the trouncing of the Patriots there. So, Bills make it to the next round. We'll find out what happens on that end. Yeah, so let's talk. We got quite a bit of news to catch up on, as I mentioned on Twitter there, from our last show being back on New Year's Day. I guess really it's really hard to figure out where to lead off on all of this. But probably where we left it was, of course, the ongoing saga of Brandon Brown. Now, again, there's, as I mentioned, when this first happened, it's like, look, the information is going to take a very long time to come out. And wouldn't you believe that's exactly what happened? Pretty much right after we finished that show, little by little, we've had like additional bits of information out here that have come out where there is a 2-year endorsement deal with the LGB coin company there with Brandon Brown, that apparently they do have other sponsors that are still staying with them. That Brandon tweeted that he had to clear up that you didn't want to make it sound like there weren't any sponsors that were backing him, that there were still companies that were returning to back his 68 team this year. So apparently the situation isn't as dire as it was first reported to be. Trying to figure out exactly what the process is. Now, again, I still think there's a lot to be unpacked with the email correspondence with the person at NASCAR that apparently approved the sponsor. That is certain, and it sounds like there's legal proceedings already underway. Does not surprise me one bit on that. Now, obviously, there's a couple of things that are going on here. NASCAR, of course, does have the right to reject any sponsors. They have a long history of doing it for any number of reasons. Remember back in the Field Fillers series that Morgan Shepherd had to fight to get the Racing with Jesus logo on there. And then there was an Ozfest paint scheme that was done that there was no issue with, that Morgan pointed out. Then a bit years later, now there was the Slayer paint scheme that was going to be on Rick Ware's car. That was rejected, and then they had to get different backing on that. Derek Cope, of course, with the redneckjunk.com website, even where the website changed the domain, that still wasn't allowed to be on there. Liquid Salvation is another one that comes up. There's a very long history, and I think in any discussion of this ongoing deal there with Brandon Brown, I think it's important to keep in mind that NASCAR does have a right, to decline sponsors, and it's not a surprise that they would. The issue, however, is again with the contract, and that's the ongoing problem. And you would say, well, wait a minute, there was no actual contract. Well, the problem is, and again, this is something that's maybe not as clear in contract law. If you have somebody that's actually going to be, it's understandable that you would rely on a person's representations, that the sponsor is approved, and that all you have to do is change the color of the numbers or something like that, and that person has the authority, the implied authority even, or it's justifiable to rely on actual, the representations put forward by that person. This person was a representative of NASCAR, and was, involved at least in some way or another with the sponsor representation, the sponsor approvals. We don't know if that was specifically the last person in line to rubber stamp it, but it seemed from the correspondence that was presented that there's a pretty unambiguous statement that it was approved, and it was just a matter of things not relating to approval of the sponsor that were left up there. So that's kind of what's being argued about. I think that obviously with the contentions from one side or the other about the nature of the sponsorship, I think that's one whole part of it. And of course, Steve Phelps has made clear about his frustrations on more the copyright side of the Let's Go brand and thing, especially with using NASCAR's font and copyrights and everything like that. There's been issues with that, but I think there is a lot that is still to be unpacked, and perhaps other details that still haven't come out. I mean, we've had a lot in just these last couple of weeks. There's still been a lot more information to come out from that. So I think that in a lot of the discussions of this, I think obviously the politics of it has been a distraction, I think, to what actually is being argued. And again, I think, whether or not there was a contract that was enforceable between the team and the NASCAR representative, I think is what's central. I think that does not go to necessarily the actual branding of the Let's Go or the LGB coin thing or anything like that. I think at least initially that could be something else that's certainly going to be part of the case, but that's not the central issue that's really being focused on. I also think that another thing that needs to be brought up here is that NASCAR does not have a responsibility to determine if a sponsor is financially stable. I think that there's a lot of very strong opinions as to cryptocurrency sponsors that they've all been coming in here. But let's not pretend that LGB Coin is the only one. Obviously, there's been ones with Corey LaJoie. There's been ones with Landon Castle, one that is now signed on to full-time next year for the Xfinity Series. There was even just last November, there was the NFT sponsorship that was on Brandon Brown's own car during that same time. This is not just on one team or just one sponsor. The unfortunate reality is that NASCAR has also had a long history of sponsors that have come in and have been kind of fly-by-night deals, but that doesn't fall on NASCAR. That is for the teams to determine. So if there's any kind of issue in this, if you believe that the legal argument here is that, oh, well, this sponsor shouldn't even be here, and those checks are going to bounce anyway, well, that's for the team to figure out. They got to do their homework when they sign up for these deals, and it's an unfortunate situation because in these teams, especially underfunded teams out there, if they're getting offered a full-time deal, especially nowadays where that is exceedingly rare, they're going to jump on that opportunity one way or the other. And it's unfortunate because obviously we've seen the video from the Larry's Lemonade guy that was who was very upset, but very clear that he did not blame Brandon Brown for the decisions that was made, but pointing out that all money is not good money. That is certainly one thing, it could certainly be addressed. And that is another thing that the teams have to take responsibility for is, how is, bringing on one sponsor going to contend with other sponsors out there? We've seen this in other things where, you had a big deal where a driver is represented by Pepsi, for example, and then they get selective even to like what branding is on the water bottle that's presented to them in the media center. In a lot of cases, there's even a person in the media center who will cut the label off of there just to make sure it doesn't conflict with the person's sponsor obligations, even for something like that. So that's another part of it. But there's been a long history of sponsors that have come into the sport, whether it's the energy drink companies or the .com bubble bursting or mortgage companies. Conseco, that, I mean, again, I'm giving a lot with the Larry Foyt video, but that is an aspect of the Larry Foyt one too. Conseco had a sponsorship for a number of years, and then they ended up being involved in the third highest bankruptcy in the world, in the U.S. history at the time, behind WorldCom and Enron. Now, a company, a team can try to do as much research as they can, but that is going to be a risk, and it's always been there. It has always been there. And I think that it's important to point out that it is not NASCAR's responsibility to figure that out. That is for the team to figure out. And unfortunately, teams do get burned by this. And there's only so much you can do, because if you're so dependent on these companies that come in, you could have a situation where it's a company that's really well founded and really well financed, and it's going to be around forever and ever, and there's no issue. Or it could be something that just completely flames out. Or it could be a company that signs onto it and then for whatever reason just doesn't follow up with their responsibilities. There's an unfortunately, very long history of that. And as I talked about in the Rise of the Field Fillers series, that used to really burn a lot of teams as well, where they had to make sure that they still entered a car every week, or they would lose their bonus incentive for being in the sport for about 5+ years thereabouts. If they lost a sponsor, they would have to keep bringing those cars out. And that's why you see a lot of those old pictures where a team like Andy Petrie Racing would have a sponsor for the Daytona 500. It's like, yeah, we're going to go full time. We're going to go all year. And then they come to Rockingham, there's no logos on it. It's like, well, that's because the sponsor didn't stay on there. But now they have to stay in it to make sure they don't lose their incentives. So there's a lot of things going on there. Obviously, the pay structure is very different now with the charter system in the Cup Series. We're talking about the Xfinity Series, of course, with the Brandon Brown situation, so you don't have that level of it. But the Xfinity Series there is much closer to what the Cup Series used to be without those charter guarantees. And unfortunately, yeah, I mean, you could have a sponsor come in that maybe just doesn't work out. But the other, so, and yeah, I mean, is this LGB coin thing the latest Big Daddy's barbecue sauce or Wave energy drink or any other thing out there that's trying to get into the sport that maybe just didn't have the legs to keep going, or just backed out? Wave had a more, legitimate presence. They were trying to create franchises for a new energy drink at the time. It just ultimately didn't work out. Whereas companies like Big Daddy's barbecue sauce, it was just a complete, it just didn't work out at all. And it's amazing that they were able to kind of have the presence that they had in early 2000s with the teams like Don Levy and Larry Hedrick back then. But the problem is, for the teams, the result is one and the same. If the check doesn't clear, or the payments just stop, they're in the exact same situation one way or the other. And it's an unenviable decision. And I think under the time constraints, especially with these teams like Carl Long's team, I saw people mentioning the Wiedwerks one. I think Sebastian LaForge, Wikiatomo TV on Twitter, he had a very good account of what happened behind the scenes there with that sponsorship. I definitely recommend checking that out on his Twitter account if you haven't read it already. That's an unfortunate part of it, and this is what comes up. So you have the stability of the company on one side, you have NASCAR's approval or declination of the sponsor on the other side, and then the ongoing demand of the schedule that you're constantly working forward here, and all these teams are trying to negotiate it. And that's leaving out any of the other aspects of the LGB coin deal with Brandon Brown, which of course are there. Obviously the political side is there. Obviously that's a factor in all of this. And I think both parties would probably, if they were going to be perfectly honest, would probably, if they had to do it over again, it probably would be better if they just didn't make a big thing out of it one way or the other. If it wasn't made a big deal by Brandon Brown's team, or if it wasn't made a big deal by NASCAR. I think if it just was one of those weird, quirky moments where it's like, okay, well, hey, this is live TV. We can't do the 7-second delay because there's people chanting in the background and they're saying, let's go, Brandon. We just laugh it off. Or if Brandon Brown had the copyright on the Let's Go Brandon thing right then and just kind of took it in a different direction and then kind of went with it, rather than letting, the internet just meme the heck out of it. And then it becomes the same kind of fungible humor as a lot of other, memes have become. Perhaps things would have been different there. But at this point, it's an unfortunate situation. I think that's about the same feeling I had on this back in early January. And I hopefully we could just whatever goes on from here, it works out best for all parties involved. But I do hope, and again, I think that the other thing that really needs to be looked at is how NASCAR handles full season sponsors, especially a full season sponsor versus, maybe a 1 or 2 race deal. What their decision making is, who is the person that's authorized to make those decisions, and make that very clear going forward. Because, and if their issue is with political sponsors, they need to be very clear about that. And and this is the tricky part of it. And again, and I know we talked about this a little bit on the last show, and this is a little controversial too. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about a political sponsor, what is a political sponsor and what isn't. And I think the important deal with that is that NASCAR make that very clear. If it is a company that has a political stance, maybe that isn't an issue because the sponsor on there is just going to have the logos of the cars, but again, they need to make that clear. But if it's something about a social movement, if it's something about that, I know there's been a lot of people discussing and saying, well, okay, social movements aren't political. I think that's a tricky argument to make. I think that social movements have to be political because they're trying to enact a change in society, and that's the effect that you have to work within the political framework there. I think it's being insincere, frankly, to make the statement that a social movement or a social cause, no matter how well-meaning or how important or how compelling, is not political. I do think that is something part of that there. And again, people can disagree with it, and that's fine. I'm not looking to go and do a whole thing about that. But I do think that it's something that needs to be kept in mind with whatever NASCAR's strategy is, if the strategy is going to be on political sponsorships. Again, and if you don't want the LGB coin thing out there, then that there may be other things that are going to kind of fall under that penumbra. And I think NASCAR, what has been a consistent issue with a lot of NASCAR sponsorships is that issue. So that's kind of the problem. So they need to have the rule be very clear. And I think the whole saga of this Brandon Brown thing is, I think the one thing that could be made very understandable is that has not been made clear. Otherwise this wouldn't be getting to this point. and I hate it for all the parties. I don't like it for Brandon Brown. I don't like it for NASCAR. I was cringing in my seat when I saw the Larry's Lemonade thing, because I could tell that person, that representative of that company was very upset about what has happened in that time. That he wanted to keep supporting Brandon Brown, that he just felt that he was just not comfortable doing it, and nobody should be put in that position. And one way or the other. And I think that's the real sad thing from this. So hopefully something gets worked out on that. But I do think there needs to be some clarity there, that is established, certainly for the teams. And it's possible that maybe it is being made clear for the teams and we're just not privy to it. I'm not professing to say that I completely understand this whole process there too. But I think that's going to be another part, to look at there. But yeah, I see your statement there too, Kyle. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't be NASCAR without gray areas. Well, sometimes the gray areas are a little bit too big. Just make them a little bit smaller. There's still going to be some room. Again, it could be just a matter of arguing definitions from one to the other. So yeah, that's kind of the unfortunate situation. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't like it for anybody involved in it. I hope it works out. I hope it just kind of blows over. I actually felt like discussing that on the show tonight was going to be kind of digging things back up again, because it feels like we haven't really heard a whole lot more since Brandon Brown posted that tweet, clearing up that he had other sponsors out there. So that's kind of showing up in there. Whoop. Oh, is somebody's comments not showing up? Okay. Isn't the text of my comments showing up on the on-screen text? I'm seeing it. I'm seeing your comments here, Beast of Metal. I hope that you're not being blocked on this. I'm having no issues with that as well. So yeah. So anyway, that's about, I'm trying to see if I have any other notes on this. Yeah. Oh, another one to kind of spring off on this with the Brandon Brown thing, I guess, without getting too buried in this too. Bob Pockrass made a very interesting tweet during the middle of this, I think about a week and a half ago, talking about the fact that NASCAR may not rule favorably on situations for the 68 team, like say maybe going through technical inspection or ruling on a yellow line penalty or anything like that. I think that is something that is very true. And I think a lot of people were kind of shocked by that or kind of taken aback about it. But really give it some thought. I mean, I think the important thing to think about with NASCAR, like any other sanctioning body, it's made of people. It's made of people like you and me, and we all have our thoughts or beliefs or viewpoints on things. We are affected by something. When something happens involving us, you can't just say that, oh, it doesn't have any effect at all. I mean, it may show itself in one way or another, but that's the case. I certainly hope this doesn't become the case with Brandon Brown or any team, because I think that that's something you just can't overcome. But with NASCAR, it is their sandbox, and you got to play by their rules. And if you decide to do something that NASCAR has advised that they don't like, unfortunately, they're probably going to rule on things differently. I can't guarantee they're going to. It's a large infrastructure as well. Whether it's the main guy doing the actual the head of the officials actually ruling on moves on the track, or if it's the people in tech inspection, or if it's anything in between. It could have a factor. You'd like to believe that people could be as impartial as possible, but it's not like they're judges or anything like that too. So yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, but it is possible. Obviously, you talk about JD McDuffie. I mean, back in his career, there were NASCAR officials that didn't like the fact that he brought Old Blue to the track instead of a bigger hauler. And so you had issues where he wasn't allowed into the track. You've had issues. Andy Belmont talked about this in Rise of the Field Fillers, where when NASCAR needed those field fillers out there, they would get them through inspection and there'd be no issues. And then suddenly when they didn't want them there, maybe they had a few more high-funded teams that they wanted to be in the show and they didn't want guys like Belmont out there. Well, suddenly the window's too thin. Suddenly this doesn't fit this template. Suddenly this doesn't fit anything else. It's their sandbox. These are their rules. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And there are some unwritten rules in there. And I hope that that's not a problem for Brandon Brown, because I think a lot of good was accomplished by that victory. I think that victory was a very popular victory. One of 3 first-time winners we had that weekend at Talladega. He'd been, he had that car salesman video earlier that year where they didn't even have sponsors back at Texas. And then getting in that situation where they were able to get something going. So I hope something, works. I hope that's not an issue with him. Hopefully there could be some kind of resolution in there. I don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe the fact that we haven't heard anything new about it is a good sign of it. That's where I feel a little reluctant kind of bringing it back in there. But that's kind of the other situation there too. So hopefully we'll get some more information on that. Another big development in these last couple of weeks was what is it to be a NASCAR Cup Series driver? What is a driver contract? Now, obviously, if you talk about what's going on with Larry Foyt's video, for example, or any of these other teams we talked about, traditionally, you would have the lead into the season saying, hey, this person landed a deal where he's going to drive this car with this sponsor for this year. And, there were so many times where that's become such a regular tradition. We look forward to it. There's a new sponsor and this driver is going to land this deal and this person's going from this team to this team. And we've still had that this year. They've actually got a head start on the Busch Clash entry list storylines because we've had the entry list to that already posted. And we'll talk about that as well. But it was very interesting when the news was broken that Ryan Preece had signed with Stewart-Haas Racing, but not to run a full-time team. Of course, they already have 4 cars, and Eric Almirola now saying he's going to be retiring from full-time competition this year. We'll talk more about that as well. But Ryan Preece signing on the deal, and I have to make sure I got the phrase correct here, looking as a reserve driver. And the concept of a reserve driver, I think, was very interesting. That would be a big announcement. That announcement was presented in the same tenor as, oh, this person landed this ride to run this full season ride, or this person has this sponsor in this series. And again, we're still seeing that, but I thought that was very unusual because I don't remember ever seeing that with Alex Bowman. I know Bowman is the one that keeps getting brought up in this discussion about, Preece's deal with Stewart-Haas and who is it good for? And, what is going to be the ultimate benefit of this. Obviously, Bowman being in the Hendrick system certainly worked out, but I don't really remember him being a big part of the discussions from one ride to the next in the Cup Series. I thought it seemed like he kind of came out of nowhere in being the person to take over for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Otherwise, there was never this big announcement, at least not that I recall. Correct me if I'm wrong, certainly, that like, oh my gosh, Alex Bowman is going to sign with Hendrick Motorsports, and he's going to maybe run 1 or 2 Cup races, and maybe run 2 or 3 Busch races or Xfinity races, and then a couple truck races. I don't recall that ever happening. Now, obviously, there was some kind of arrangement because it happened so seamlessly. Once Junior was kind of scaling back in his career, that Bowman got into the 88, and this, of course, made it a much easier transition to get drivers in. Maybe this is going to be the new tradition, rather than waiting till the very end of the year and saying, okay, here's our guy, and we're just going to see what happens at Daytona. Maybe they want to feed some races along the way to get used to it, knowing that they have guaranteed starting spots, so that they don't have to worry about not missing the show, and maybe this is a consequence of that. But I was very interested that came out, and I did make the comment at the time that it reminded me so much of Formula One. And Formula One obviously does have this. They have a structure where they have drivers that are on standby that come into Formula One. And now my understanding from some other people that were talking about this is that there are some cases where there are drivers that are put in these contracts that never actually get a chance to actually race a single Formula One race, or they have to do this assistant role for years. And of course, in Formula One, you only have 26 guaranteed spots. You only have a very small percentage of that are very competitive teams as well. The number of chances is just reduced by so much. So you have that situation. But I think there was a representative from Stewart-Haas that entered the discussion there that I think also raised the other interesting aspect, which is what is successful? What is what the driver wants to achieve? Is this something? Is it a matter? Because there's been many drivers that have said that this is a "what have you done for me lately" sport. This is a sport where you need to make sure you maintain a presence, even if you were like a start and park guy a decade ago, that you're still out there and that people still know your name, and that if they need a relief driver, they know where to find you, that you're always going to be there. Because if you're just not there for a while, people forget about you really quick because they're on to the next guy, the next driver that comes in there. So certainly if this is the new aspect for that, and keeping Ryan Preece in there, obviously the 37 not coming back this year, which was an open car already last year. The only open team that I think started all the races last year, in fact. So now he's got a situation where he's got a ride. Stewart-Haas obviously not happy with their performance at all last year. Probably needs as many hands on deck to help their performance and help improve, and with this new car and everything too. Although again, with this new car, I think everybody's a novice. I don't see the advantage of having somebody that's just entirely been driving the Gen 6 car, but I guess that's still better than somebody that has no experience at all. Although I guess we're going to see that in a couple of different examples of other drivers and teams coming into the Cup Series this season. I think if Ryan Preece is happy with the deal, I mean, I would certainly not fault any of that. I mean, again, maybe this is a much better outcome than just not being in a ride at all, because of course, now start and parks have completely scaled back in Xfinity and trucks now, than just not having that opportunity at all and just disappearing for a half a year and then maybe try again in 2023. Maybe that's just not an option anymore because the driver turnover rate is just so high. Maybe in this case, this is the way to do that. And if that's the case, then great. I think Ryan Preece is a very talented modified driver. I thought that his breakthrough win in the Truck Series last year was a very positive indicator that he can do a lot in lower series, which sometimes does happen with guys in the Cup Series where, they're just constantly competing for 25th and can't really do anything. I mean, look at the advantage it's had for AJ Allmendinger. I mean, he has completely turned his career around by going into colleague racing in the Xfinity Series. And now he's looking like a world beater coming into this year, even sharing that ride with Hemrick and Gregson this year in the Cup Series. So, maybe that's going to work out for him. But, from my standpoint, and maybe that standpoint shouldn't matter because, of course, I'm not the one behind the wheel. I can only think back to like Neil Bonnet. And back in 1993, where he was Dale Earnhardt's test driver, and he didn't want to be a test driver. He wanted to race, and he wanted to race as many times as he could. He wasn't going to be satisfied in that associate role. I think it's really the sports psychology of it that would be interesting to kind of figure out is like, what is it? It's not even like getting brought back into the Xfinity series and getting a full-time ride there. You were running just a very few races in Cup, very few in Xfinity, and few in trucks. That was basically the deal there. And then working with the simulator and testing and so forth there with Stuart Haas. That's still, I mean, to me, if that were me, I would be a little on edge about it, even with it's a really high caliber organization like Stuart Haas, which is better than a JTG Doherty Racing. And I know Neil Bonnet may not be the best example of it because, of course, his final decision to get back into racing did ultimately cost him his life. But that's for whole other, reasons there with his particular history in the sport. Priest is, of course, a much younger driver. Cars are much safer. Very different set of circumstances here. And it's exciting to see that Priest even got the other ride to run in the Busch Clash coming up here next month. So I think that's fantastic for him too. But, again, that's just from my standpoint. I think, if going from a full season ride to maybe 2 or 3 races is good enough, then okay, that's great. I think that, maybe my concern is like, maybe it's just not going to be a permanent, position where you're just always going to be that test guy and you're never going to be the guy that's going to be getting into it. Because I'd hate to see a whole group of Cup Series drivers that are full-timers get pushed out for just somebody that just happens to have a sponsor and all they get to be is just test drivers for the rest of their careers. I don't think that's fair either. It's unfortunate that there's only so many seats, although that isn't necessary either. It didn't used to be the case. It used to be you could have other teams out there. It used to be you didn't have an arbitrary cap on a number of teams. I do think it's another consequence of that. So I'm not happy about that. But that's the only way I can view it. Again, if Priest is happy with it, I can't fault him because, again, his objectives may be entirely different from what I'm looking at. I just saw the comment there about trivia. Yeah, we're going to definitely do trivia tonight. We'll do that as well. But again, maybe this is the trajectory. Maybe it's not just a constant downhill slope. Maybe it is just you kind of bounce off this spot and then boom, you're right back in the Cup Series again with a team that's entirely better than you've ever had before, like Allmendinger at Colleague, like Bowman at Hendrick, like anything else. And if this is just the way the driver turnover is going to be, then great. And if it leaves open opportunities that you still have a feeder system where people can come up from the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series or short tracks or anything else. I was very pleased with what we saw with Josh Berry last year. I think that was fantastic for him. I think that really showed that in the right set of circumstances, a driver could get back up into the ranking and being a big name, being a multiple time winner. That's fantastic. And then something can work out for him too. So, we'll see. I think that's going to be, I think that's interesting, but I do think that was more my own perception of it as, I'm thinking back to, I guess I'll bring this up. I probably brought this up before. I used to be on the rowing team back in college, and I didn't realize at the time, but I was the slowest guy. I was the back of the field. I have plenty of experience from the back of the pack. Let me tell you what. But when I was really struggling with it, the main coach, in fact, the founder of the organization, he would always check in with me and be like, well, it's like, how are you doing? And kind of checking in on me. I didn't realize until sometime later that he was actually looking at me to be the team manager. That maybe you're just not cut out to be, the rowing, being one of the rowers out there. Maybe you should be the team manager. You can help us set up, trips, set up our meets, and set up, kind of do the administrative side of it there behind the pack. But I was too dense to really understand that. I didn't understand that was what he was doing. In fact, I only found out about this when he wrote a letter of recommendation for me after the fact that brought that up specifically. And because I had no idea. I didn't have any understanding of sports or red shirting or all that stuff there from that aspect. Certainly, following NASCAR doesn't really prepare you for that. So that's kind of my concern. That's probably why I felt so deeply about it. Because, and again, I think in my own case, that was a situation where, it was a well-meaning gesture. It's like, look, you're struggling with this, maybe you're not going to be that good. And I wasn't, I basically, in my 4 years, I competed all 4 years, got my varsity letter, but at the very end of it, I was middle of the pack. That was as far as I could go, and that was as best as I could be. Maybe, did they need a really good manager? Maybe they did. Maybe that would have made other things work out better. But I was only interested in competing. I wanted to compete. I knew this is the only chance that I was ever going to have to do something like this. I had no illusions of going to the Olympics or anything like that. And I was a complete walk-on. So I'm like, no, I want to go out here. I want to compete. I want to try to get up there. And I don't think that that's too different when you're a professional athlete. I think if you get a chance, especially if you are like Ryan Preece, a guy that's in the Cup Series, that you get to run Cup Series equipment, may not be for the best team, and you may not get the best finishes, but you are one of the 30, you're one of the 36. And that's the only 36 spots in the entire world that get to compete in that. You get some open teams out there, maybe bring it up to 40. That's out of the entire world. I mean, that's the only chance that you have. I mean, that's an extremely, there are other things that are perhaps even more elite that are actually easier to get into than getting into the Cup Series today because of those limits. And Ryan Preece is no slouch at the Daytona 500. I'd be very surprised if he does not land a ride for the 500. I've watched a couple of the clips from the last couple of years. He's been in the top 5 in a lot of those. I know that plate racing is very much a crapshoot. I know it's going to be even more of one with the next gen car. But I'd be very surprised if one of the races, it's unfortunate. It doesn't sound like it's going to be, because I know David Reagan's going to be in the 15 car for Daytona, where that's going to be his ride for the Clash. But and again, I think the Clash is going to be a great chance for him too, because I mean that's probably a quarter mile is probably big for a modified track for those guys. So running a Cup car around there, so maybe he'll be have a big advantage there. Clip this out in case that happens, but that'll be kind of something to look at there too. But yeah, I think that's kind of where where my emotions are with that. I think that again, if Ryan Preece is happy with it, great. If this is just the direction that NASCAR is going, I think that's worth at least being critical about, because I think it's like, well, why is this now the trajectory? Why wasn't it like this a decade ago? And if this was the case a decade ago, why is it getting publicized so much more now as if it's the same as a typical driver announcement? That's what I think is kind of unusual. It's being treated as if this has always been the case, and it's absolutely not been, at least from, what we've been able to hear in the last, last 10 years or so. So I think that's the case. But yeah, that was, that's kind of my viewpoint on that, as well. Let's see here. So I touched on this a little bit with talk about Ryan Preece. Of course, we have to talk about Eric Almirola retiring from full-time competition at the end of this season, and very happy for him. I mean, again, any of these drivers, when it gets to the grind, I think this is the same thing you're hearing from a lot of drivers today, and I think that is problematic. We even heard this out of Jimmy Johnson. I think in his Graham Bessinger interview, he talked about the grind of it, and then winning every once in a while was enough to kind of keep him going for a few races, and then the grind would get back to him. I do think that we need to shorten the schedule. I think we do need to reduce it. I love having 36 races, 36 points races, and 2 exhibition races, and covering as many about them as possible, and doing as many last place battles. But I'll tell you something, it can be kind of a grind following it. And I think even for a casual viewer, NASCAR really needs to understand, it's, if you expect people to be watching the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series the entire season and chronicling all that, that's a large time commitment. I mean, you're talking like, your entire weekend, basically, at least one part of your entire weekend is going to be that. And, I know obviously if you're a hardcore racing fan, you're not going to think anything of it, because that's something you enjoy. But then if you're writing for it, or if you're producing content for it, well, then that's even more of your weekend. And then pretty soon it's Monday again. You got to get ready for the next week. And it's hard to do that. Now, that's from that standpoint. I can't imagine what it's like for the crews that are working on these cars with a supply chain crisis, trying to get these 7 next gen cars set up here, after retiring all their Gen 6 cars, while they have an 85-day off season now, and they got to turn these cars around for a race they've never had to do before, doing the Busch Clash, and then getting ready for the Daytona 500 2 weeks after that. It is a grind, and I think we are seeing a lot of casualties of that, which is unfortunate. And I think we're seeing a lot of talent that maybe would have stayed around a bit longer if the schedule were shorter. It's sad that we don't have Jimmy Johnson. It's sad that Eric Almirola is going out of the sport. And I know that Almirola has struggled. He's only had a few wins. I know last year he was a last car contender because he had so many struggles. And I believe he had 3 last place finishes last year. He had a very clear shot at possibly being the last car contender there. So, broke through with that win at New Hampshire. But again, you got these drivers, they start families, they're looking at different things, maybe other things that they're passionate about. And it really makes you wonder. Now, I mean, is this inevitable? Yes. I mean, to some degree, you're going to have drivers that are going to be retiring out of the sport and they're going to be looking to do something else. And I think NASCAR, really, I mean, if you're talking about the Ryan Preece deal, I think NASCAR should really be looking into some kind of structure that where are they going to put these drivers that, no longer are competing in the sport at all, that they don't have an inclination to even run in Xfinity or trucks or anything like that. Some of them we're seeing are running like the Chili Bowl. I saw some people asking about that. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But other competitors trying sprint cars or other series, or maybe just trying something entirely different. I'm thinking back to Jerry Nadeau when I interviewed him, and of course his career was cut short by that injury. But he was really going to NASCAR and saying, "Look, is there something that I could do for you? I mean, I'm still able to do other things, whether it's driver coaching or something like that." There's people that are looking for ways to help other drivers. Again, this is something, if you haven't seen the Larry Foyt video, I mean, Mark Green is a good example of it, that he was brought up as a driver coach for Larry Foyt coming up, and also worked with Casey Kane. I didn't know that. I didn't know that in doing that research. So maybe I'd like to believe that there's something like that that's worked out for these other drivers that maybe don't have as much success, or maybe are later on in their career, or maybe retired. I think that's something that I would like to hear much more about, because it seems like, sometimes people find other businesses. I mean, Rick Mast, of course, working, has been very outspoken on the issue of carbon monoxide poisoning since the incidents that ended his career in 2002. Sometimes people work things out, or they have a family business in that sense, but that's not the case in every case. And hopefully that something like that could be worked out too. But yeah, I think if we got the schedule down at least to maybe 29 races again, I think that would be good. I think that would also encourage a discussion that would get rid of the playoff system, because I think the fact that a playoff system is even able to work is an indicator of how long the season is, how preposterously long it is. If you just had a shorter season, I think that would make it much more, I think it would much more encourage a shorter season, or encourage a single season points championship there. I think that would be a much better way to do it. And perhaps, that would work out there. So I don't know. I think that would be something to kind of look at. I do like the current points structure. I like that one position is 1 point. I think they've overly complicated it for purposes of the playoffs. I don't like that if you win the Daytona 500, you suddenly don't have to worry about how consistent you are for the rest of the year because you're in the championship. Look how that worked out for Michael McDowell in the first few rounds of the championship there. It didn't work out too well. So, I think that I'm not crazy about that. I think that needs to change, but maybe shortening the schedule will be kind of a means to get there, and a means to keep these drivers in there. But as to Almirola himself, I know I've kind of gone wide of the mark here. Again, more power to him. He's got a good family there. I certainly hope, certainly wish the best for him there. It is interesting to hear the rhetoric of retiring from full-time competition to still give the Open the opportunity to run other series. Of course, Jimmy Johnson has now been, he's more busy in all these other divisions than he's ever been. Are we going to see that out of Almirola? Who knows? But I do think he's definitely worthy of respect, and I'm looking forward to going to Phoenix this year and seeing him off there for his last start there. I think that'll be something to certainly follow as well. But best wishes for him, and I hope that Stuart Haas starts turning the corner this year, and maybe we won't see just that one victory out of him this year. And who knows? Who knows how things work out for him on that end. Another bit of controversy that came up a little while back that was brought up by both Winston Kelly and Dale Earnhardt Jr. was regarding the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And apparently, and we talked about rules a lot earlier here, especially with sponsorship, the rule at the NASCAR Hall of Fame that any posthumous inductees, anybody who's no longer with us, that they weren't allowing a next of kin to do their actual speech, to actually do their speech at the lectern at the induction. This was particularly coming up with the example of Mike Stefanik, who just passed away just a few years ago. So I wasn't aware that this was a rule. I think a lot of us were very much caught off guard by that, but I'm glad that things were kind of changed around there, that, both Dale Jr. and Winston Kelly brought this to attention and really kind of made sure that that rule got changed, so that Mike's widow could speak at his induction. That's going to be really critical, I think, for a lot of the sport. I think there's a lot of people that, I think back to other people I would have loved to interview for books or for videos or anything along the way. I hate that I didn't get a chance to speak with James Hilton or Junie Donlavey or some of these other figures in the sport who almost certainly are going to be in the actual Hall of Fame. It wasn't always a rule. Is that the case? That's surprising. I don't know why that wasn't. Yeah, I don't know why that would even be suggested. Then that makes even less sense. If it wasn't always a rule, then yeah, that's even more absurd. But I'm glad that at least whatever the nature of it was, I'm glad that it was addressed and brought up in this case, because I do think that's a mistake. I mean, come on, there's so many people that were important figures of the sport that just aren't with us anymore, that are definitely deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. I still, if I could, if time travel were possible, I still think NASCAR should have gone back and said, okay, look, there's these 50 to 100 people that we can all pretty much agree are going to be in the Hall of Fame. Let's not get into a whole thing about how many people are going to be admitted each year and who's going to be admitted ahead of who. Like, let's not argue about whether Richard Petty should be in there before Dale Earnhardt. Let's just put all these people in there, and then we can go from there as to every other people. It's like, who else needs to be in there? I think that would be a much better way to do it. I mean, who's really going to argue that Benny Parsons shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, or Cale Yarborough, or Darrell Waltrip, or Richard Petty, or Dale Earnhardt? I mean, it's absurd. There's a lot of people that, and it's not a stretch that I mean, obviously you have wins that you can compare people about, like, okay, well, which driver has more wins or something, but even that's arbitrary. I think that should have been done from the outset. Unfortunately, we're too far down the road to change anything on that end. But I do think that they set up, I don't know how they did that with Canton or any of these other Hall of Fames or whatever, but obviously they've been around for a lot longer, so there hasn't been as much of an issue there. But I think that was a mistake. So I don't know, but maybe we'll, still closing the gap there. I think there's a lot of drivers that have been left out of it that it's amazing they're not even getting nominated or even, brought up in the discussion. Especially in NASCAR, where you have so many people that are, that are big figures in the sport, not just drivers, team owners, mechanics, pit crew members. I mean, Chocolate Myers should be in there. I mean, any of these other, there's a lot of people that you could really look at it. Promoters, any other group in there. There's so many people that it takes to make this sport operate. I think they probably should have just started and said, okay, well, there's these 10 drivers, these 10 owners, these 10 promoters, these 10s, whatever. And now I guess they got this whole thing where it's like, what, there's gonna be like one vintage person, and that's almost like, forcing everybody to eat their broccoli when they don't want to. Like, it's like, oh, well, we gotta look at the history book once and pick somebody out. That's just absurd. It's all one constant bit of history. You don't get to just pick. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do Jeff Gordon and Dale Jr. Like, whoop-de-doo. Like, I mean, okay, well, how about maybe one year we gotta make sure that, somebody like Rex White is in there, or, something like that. So yeah, Dr. Jerry Punch. Exactly. Broadcasters should absolutely be in there too. I like that there's the NMPA at Darlington there. So a lot of them are in there, Barney Hall and so forth. But yeah, there's that too. So I don't know. That's another thing that kind of needs to be looked at too. Hey, Adam, thank you for dropping into the chat there as well. Yeah, if you haven't seen the Foyt video, yeah, it's definitely on the channel, so you can check that out. I saw the Tim Vision there, a last car rowing champion. Yeah, that was me. That was pretty much that. I'll probably do that in a video someday, but I don't know. We'll find out on that. Speaking of veteran drivers, of course, I talked about this a little bit on the last show. I think in the last show, Linda McDuffie had just reissued the Rumple Furniture hats and the JD McDuffie shirts on the JD McDuffie NASCAR Racing Legend Facebook group. You can definitely check that out. If you haven't joined that, I highly recommend checking that out, because there's been a lot. That group has been growing by leaps and bounds this last month or so here. They've been bringing a lot of people on. They had a fascinating thread in there of people who actually commented that were people that helped JD out. Because, of course, a lot of people who helped JD in his career were volunteers. So there's a large part of that discussion that I think is that's very interesting. So I think a lot of people bringing up their own stories from it. It's fascinating. So if you haven't joined that group yet, I highly recommend it. It's also a good way to sign up for some of the merch that Linda herself is personally reissuing. And I think they're doing a fantastic job with that, with the printer, I believe, out of Illinois, that's doing it there. So they're going to have some more information on that as well. So that's another one to look at. So that's definitely one to check out. Let's see. Okay, those are kind of the larger stories here. Kind of touching on a couple other bits of information here. Matt DiBenedetto gets a ride with the Rackley War effort. This is, we talked about Josh Berry a little bit earlier. We saw Berry in that 25 a bit last year. Timothy Peters, unfortunately, didn't work out in that Truck Series effort, so they had a couple different drivers in there. But Matty D will be back in NASCAR next year. In the Truck Series, so we'll see what goes on that side. We've also seen more about Todd Bodine's effort in the Truck Series this year, that one of the races he will be running in 2022 is going to be the return of the Truck Series to Sears Point, which is going to be very exciting in his pursuit of, I believe, his 800 career truck starts. Very exciting to be that our track is going to be a part of that. Certainly looking forward to covering that as well. We get here this next June. So a lot of pieces falling into place. We've had a lot of team and driver announcements. Josh Bilicki just today clarifying a press release from earlier that he is going to be running the 77. Looked like he's actually going to be running it for a significant portion of the schedule, which is fantastic. Bilicki, of course, I think he was really probably the best driver at the Rick Ware stable last year. Ran the 52 car pretty much the entire season and had some good runs out there. So that was really good to see. We're seeing Rick Ware just having the 15 to 51, at least so far at the Clash. We're not seeing the 52 or the 53 returning, at least so far. We'll see if that changes for the 500. Not exactly sure how that's going to work out. Likely be open drivers, since all the chartered guys have to run the Clash. So that seems to be the exclusive list of who the 36 are. But Bilicki in the 77, a ride made available after Justin Haley now is going to be full season in the 31 for Colleague Racing this year, alongside the shared ride with Allmendinger, Daniel Hemrick, and Noah Gragson that was mentioned a little bit earlier. Going to be an interesting group there at the same time, so that's going to be interesting. So good for Bilicki on that. I think he's a really underrated driver. I think his top 10 at Daytona was a fantastic story this year. And I look forward to, I think he had a great run at the Indy road course as well. Of course, a very good road course driver as well. So, but yeah, kudos to him on the 77 ride. We'll see how things go on that end as well. Let's see. Talking about Bilicki and the 77 car, I had to transition for that. Corey LaJoie still in the 7 car this year. Obviously, we had the tests both at Daytona and Atlanta. Since we last spoke on here, the Atlanta test was interesting. I expected a lot more single file racing, everybody kind of hugging the top of the track there. I'm glad it was a safe test from what I saw. Had a couple incidents along the way there, but nothing too serious. I think the speeds and the drafting speeds, of course, are going to be really interesting coming up there. The width of that straightaway is also pretty jaw-dropping as well. I thought Texas's quad oval was very large from going there last year. I can't imagine how big Atlanta's looks at this point. The Daytona testing was very interesting. The pack racing that we have in that looks like it's going to be very competitive, at least from what we saw so far, just with, 20 odd cars out there. It was very enjoyable to watch that on my lunch break there in the middle of the week there. So that was really cool to see. Good to see something, some resemblance of preseason Thunder coming back as well. Seeing some action in January, including some fully wrapped cars as well. A lot of different sponsors kind of revealing themselves. I guess we got a CBD sponsor for Tyler Reddick this year, which is interesting. I'm sure Carl Long has an eyebrow to raise at that after the issues that the Wiedwerks thing had back in 2017 when they were coming back in. Again, check out Sebastian LaForge's Twitter for the full story on that. But yeah, very interesting on this. Oh yeah, the thing I've left out about talking about Todd Bodine coming back at Sears Point. Sears Point bringing back the chute this year instead of the carousel. Got a little bit mixed emotions on it. I know a lot of people seem to be applauding it. Said that, of course, it did slow down the speeds and everything. I thought of all the broadcasts that Fox did last year, with the exception of a couple cameras they used at Daytona, I thought their camera work at Sears Point was outstanding. I thought it was the only good time that they used the drone cam was to cover the carousel and show the difference in speed through there. I thought as a television experience, it made it pretty good. I think also it makes that exit of turn 7, a lot tighter and kind of interesting as well. But obviously, if you have the cars coming down the hill and, any kind of situation with that as well will be kind of interesting. So that's going to be that'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, I like the carousel. I thought it was an interesting aspect of the track. I thought it showed up well on TV. But then again, I mean, the shoot, if you want to have more laps out there, if you want to have if we're going back to 110 laps, then okay, that's cool. And if they want to sell more seats in turn 4, because of course, there was nothing happening over there when you're using the carousel, I certainly understand that from that standpoint too. I really liked this new track operator here, Jill Gregory, is really trying some different things there. I like that she's doing the turn 11 grandstands. I like all the different changes to this as well. Perhaps she's just trying this out as well. And maybe looking at the carousel another time. I still think I like the idea of dual races where it's one on the carousel and one on the chute. I was not really joking about that. I was kind of thinking that would probably be a good way to do it. Maybe that'll be something in the future as well. But I don't know. That'll be interesting. Joey MJ1, yeah, thank you for the clarification there on the Tyler's sponsor as well there compared to the Wiedwerks deal. But that whole thing, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in that. But, whatever other companies are looking to get into the sport, again, I'm open to whatever they're willing to try. Hopefully the teams are able to figure out, which ones are legitimate, which ones are doing, are going to be able to fill their end of the contract and everything. And, I don't want to see any team struggling with that. So certainly wishing the best of luck. It's pretty cool looking paint scheme too. Kind of reminds me of the NY Racing team, which transition may or may not be coming back at Daytona as well. I know we've been teased this a number of times. It's a shame because I think that render of their Mustang they had with the Steakhouse Elite paint job on the number 7 car looked pretty awesome. I was looking forward to seeing that at the track. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I think Jonathan Cohen's got a real knack for having some dazzling cars out there. I know, obviously, everybody seems to remember that team a lot more for the car that was stolen from Atlanta in 2015. Gosh, it doesn't feel like it's been that long ago, but it certainly has been. Hopefully they come back out. I think I'm a big fan of getting as many new teams out there, even if they're open teams. I think that increases the competition. I think it makes qualifying more interesting and consequential. So, yeah, hopefully we'll find out what happens on that end. So we're getting down towards the end of our news segment here. We'll get into trivia and show and tell here as well. And we'll certainly talk about this too and get into that. Let me take a look here. I'm going to get this pulled up. Hang on. Where is that window? Let's not have computer issues again. Okay, there we go. All right. So I want to get a look at the Busch Clash entry list again. All right. Where is it? Oh, nope, that's the one for 2020. We don't want that. Okay, so just kind of looking at the entry list here. I mean, it's interesting. Of course, we talked about Ryan Brees being in the 15 car. Whoop, are we still? Okay, good. We're still here. Sorry, I had the window covering that up. So, yeah, Ryan Brees, the 15 car, AJ Allmendinger in the 16. We'll have more of this covered, of course, in the entry list article that'll be posted the Thursday before the Clash. I'm going to, since there's a bit of more of a gap between that and the 500, basically the more the Daytona 500 entry list. So we're going to talk about the team, the 2017 with Jacques Villeneuve and Beard Motorsports, those other guys. That'll be talked more about later in the month with the Xfinity and Truck Series getting their season going at Daytona. But yeah, I'm very excited to see this particular group here. Todd Gilliland's first laps for Front Row Motorsports. Starting his rookie season off, Harrison Burton in a Cup car, Kurt Busch's number 45, Ty Dillon in the Petty GMS number 42. A lot of sponsorships still not filled in on this entry list. Of course, this is unusually early, especially for this particular event here, that we would see this. Usually we wouldn't see it until like the week of, if not maybe the week before. But especially during the season when things get going here, it seems to take a little bit longer. Good to see BJ McLeod on there. The Live Fast team did have a car at the test there. I believe at the Roval test. I'm not sure if they were at the Daytona or the Atlanta ones. But good to see the 78 on the list. Landon Castle in the 77 car there. I mean, gosh, he's got a ride in the Spire Motorsports thing, at least for this first race of the season, the first exhibition of the season, of course. But then the full-time deal with Colleague and the Voyager sponsorship, going to be a good year for him. Good to see Cody Ware land the full season ride again at the Rick Ware team there, the number 51. Hopefully, it'd be very interesting to see, any of these drivers that, we usually saw struggle quite a bit in Gen 6 cars. Is this finally going to close the gap a little bit for some of these drivers and teams that have struggled in the past? I know that this was something that was thought about with the car tomorrow and the Gen 6, and I have gone on record, and I will say again that I do believe that, the rich get richer when these situations happen. I do still think Hendrick is probably going to figure it out first, just like they did with the Gen 6, just like they did with the car tomorrow. But the supply chain shortage and limiting the number of chassis might be a factor in this. And we'll see what works out. One thing we know from the Rick Ware team, they in fact acquired the next-gen cars from Starcom Racing, where they actually had 2 finished cars, according to the Copes, and 1 that was almost finished when they came to Phoenix in November, and that was back then. So, I'm not sure, where they stood on here, if it was like a JD McDuffie arrangement where they finished that last car and then sent it over to the Ware team. They've already had their auction at the Starcom shop since then, so that was scheduled back in December. So we'll see how things go on that end. But it's possible that Rick Ware's team could actually be probably in one of the best shapes in terms of what cars they have at their disposal. I don't know how quickly they've been able to produce next-gen cars in their own right, but that's certainly an advantage that they can certainly work with there as well. Good to see 36 cars on there. I was hoping maybe we get some of the open guys out, but it's probably a little bit too much to ask, I guess, to get a lot of these, open teams to come out here to California, especially if they're going to come out to California, go back to Daytona for the 500 events, and then come back out here again at Fontana. I anticipate I'd like to believe we'll have some open teams come out here for Fontana. I'd love to see the Hazenberg Systems 27 car. I don't know if Jacques Villeneuve will compete in that one, if we're going to get Loris Hesmans or these others. Probably butchering these pronunciations, but I look forward to using those again this season here in the starting grids and so forth. That is another thing to work on there too. We're very close to our next benchmark of doing another starting grid this year in the Patreon. However, that does not include the Daytona 500. I've already planned on doing that one. So that's to do another starting grid in addition to Daytona. So if you're interested in joining the Patreon, that's another incentive that you can check out there as well. We're very close on that mark as well. But I am planning on doing the Daytona 500 starting grid for sure with the next-gen cars and doing a lead-in there. I'm still kind of working on a format for that. Now that I got the Foyt video done, that was one other thing I was looking to kind of get done with that. But we'll find out how all that shakes out. Let's see here. Let's see. Any other notes I missed here? Ice Cube competing. That would be pretty awesome too. But being another musical guest of the Clash, sounds like it's going to be a heck of a party over there. You're going to have Ice Cube doing a concert there during the race, just like Pitbull is going to was already signed to perform there as well. These things tend to happen in threes. I'm wondering who the third one's going to be. So we'll find out, or I guess it's going to be just however it is. We're so far we're still locked and loaded for the Clash and trying to see how that goes, and I think that'll be an interesting one to certainly cover. I also like the discussion that we actually had this past week about how to determine the last place finisher of the Clash. I think I like the consensus. It seemed like I think it was 70% said that whoever was the last place finisher of the 150 lap main, and that was where I was kind of leaning as well. Because that would kind of be like where you have Eldora, for example, the dirt track race. It's the last place finisher of the main event, not from the last chance qualifier or those heat races. Same kind of thing here. I'll probably do something where, since it's the same field through all of it, maybe I'll do like the last place finishers of the heat races and how last place changes hands from like qualifying through those, and the last chance qualifiers and the main event and kind of work something out there. I'll kind of figure that out, but definitely the feature of the story, I think, will still be the last place finisher, the 150 lap main. So that'll kind of be the focus there. So look forward to that for that. Oh, thank you for the super chat there, iRacer CB. Hey, Brock, I know I'm late to the stream, but I'm wondering if you caught any of the Chili Bowl over the weekend. Good question. I did, in fact, I just caught the very tail end of it. We did have, I forgot we had MAV TV because we signed up for the NFL Red Zone towards the end of the season. So we did watch that. I just watched the main event. I just watched the A main. I waited for Jeff Gluck to give the heads up and when that started. Because I think that was the same night as the Bills game. So I was watching that at the time. And I think that had wrapped up. And then I had watched it after that point. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty exciting. Kudos to Tanner Thorson for the victory. I think I already wrote a LASCAR article about him when he was struggling in the truck series. I think it was at Vegas, in fact, a couple years ago that he had a engine failure or an early crash or something. Kind of reminded me of what happened with Chris Hacker this past last year. Yeah, seemed to be struggling in trucks. I remembered he came out for a World of Outlaws event at Placerville, which is not far from here at LASCAR headquarters. Seeing him compete out there, I think he had an engine situation in that race, but he was competitive up there. And of course, that's a local dirt track up here in Northern California. I was very struck by how many Northern Californians are really good at slinging the dirt up there. Obviously, Kyle Larson gets the most attention, but Tanner Thorson, another member of that group, Rico Abreu, of course, others there too. So. But kudos to Thorson. I think that's a great story. Good to see some unfiltered excitement out of him there along the way, and definitely good to see. And hopefully that helps jumpstart his career as well. Taking a golden driller from Christopher Bell is no small accomplishment. Bell seemed to have that race very well in hand. But again, that's why you got to run all the laps. That's why you can't leave early at any of these things because you never know what's going to happen. One way or the other, whether it's the back of the field or the front, anything can happen, and usually does. So I don't follow the Chili Bowl quite as close as folks like Gluck or Weaver or those guys do. I just kind of leave it to them to kind of do that. But I do enjoy some of these off-season races. I like the Snowball Derby. I'm looking forward to the 24 Hours of Daytona in a couple weeks. That'll be exciting. Just be watching those remotely. I'm not going to any of those, but yeah, it's pretty cool. And it looks like they had some good camera angles. I know there are a lot of people that are complaining about the coverage. I didn't watch enough of it to really get a good grasp of that. But I know some people were pretty upset about the MAV TV coverage of the main event there. I thought it was decent from what I saw, but I admit I didn't watch enough of it to get a good feel for that. So I'll defer to other people there. Did the mic spike bad? Hang on. You don't have a loose cable or something. I might have been too close to the mic there. I'll bring that back. Thank you for letting me know, Joey. There, if we have any issues there with the mic, definitely make sure to let me there. I don't want to cost anybody their hearing here on this one. So we'll keep going from there. So we'll jump into trivia here next. I think that's most of the topics I wanted to kind of cover here. I had kind of a long note here on this. I have kind of a whole to-do list here on this one, but I think that pretty much covers that one. Obviously, if you have any other questions, we'll certainly jump into that too. Ooh, imagine if Snoop does a performance a week before the Super Bowl. You never know. I mean, that's gonna be the interesting thing too. Yeah, if you got this event right before the Super Bowl, and apparently the Super Bowl, they're still committed to doing it at SoFi Stadium, so that's gonna be really interesting too. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. The atmosphere should be pretty cool. I hope that there's going to be a good presence there. I think the last report, I mean, a couple of things I think are great is, I mean, they said that they're down to, I think the last 2,000 tickets, from the last report, at least that I heard, on the Clash at the Coliseum, that 60% of the ticket sellers are people that have never been to a NASCAR race before. I think that's outstanding. I hope that they enjoy the show out there. I think that's going to be really cool. I'd love to share NASCAR statistics with anybody that's new out there. So I got fingers crossed on that too. So that'll be something to certainly talk about. Oh, Beast of Metal, thank you for the super chat as well. The Steelers are quite decisively not going to the Super Bowl, so I think I'm going to hop on a bandwagon for a bit for the moment. This is my new war cry. Buffalo all the way this time. Yeah, exactly. Kansas City, it's going down, Jerry. It's going down. Only Buffalo is going to win. Oh, I probably harshed the mic again. only Buffalo is going to win. There you go. That's happening. I have to jump through some tables here at Last Car headquarters if that happens. So we'll find out. Yeah, Steelers not gone to Super Bowl. No. I did watch Urinating Trees stream during that there, and I feel bad for him. I hated it that Roethlisberger's last pass was an interception, and that was too bad. But or just, well, I guess it was an interception. Was it an interception? I thought it just I remember it just ended really quickly, and it just kind of they had a brick wall there at the end, and that was the end of it. But yeah, rough deal there. But again, we talk about retired athletes and stuff. We're kind of a big theme during a lot of the show here today too. So I guess that's kind of part of that also. But yeah. So anyway, we'll go into our show and tell. Oh, here, hang on. We'll do the categories here. We'll do the show and tell during the category selection. We'll bring out our good buddy, the Trivial Pursuit NASCAR deal here. Hang on. I got, like I say, I got a new light here, so we'll probably have a little bit of glare on the screen here, but we'll try to figure that out. So again, trivia questions for the late 90s. We'll find out which category you guys like. Again, for those of you new to the show here, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories for today. So definitely mention that here. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild cards. Those are your categories. Definitely make sure to vote in the chat section there. Don't be a stranger. We got 35 people in here. Welcome aboard. Thank you for those of you who tuned in tonight on this 3-day weekend honoring the life of Dr. King. So we will have our show tonight here. Oh gosh, we also had AJ Foyt's birthday yesterday. If I had planned things out better, I probably would have posted that video on Saturday, but I want to make sure, or on Sunday, but I wanted to make sure that the Patreon members had their advance access and had a full day at least to check that. So I moved it again to today, but I do appreciate you guys' patience on that. And more content is absolutely on the way. So that's kind of the goal at the moment here. Alrighty. So for a show and tell, I did show this in the video, but I did have this Larry Foyt hat that was in the video. Oh, hang on. Okay, this glare is going to be an issue. All right, I can just show it from here, I guess. Was really pleased with this here, too. I actually just picked this up on eBay just recently. But I love the embroidery on it here. And I think that's the one drawback with purple paint schemes is I think the color kind of comes washed out after a while. My brother's, Lastbro is actually a big Vikings fan, so I have kind of some of this issue here too with his stuff. But I love the paint jobs that they had on the car that year. Very festive, very dazzling. And again, this is kind of an interesting capture that time again back in 2003 with the Harris logo. The 14 with, I guess, the flaming heart there in the middle of the 4. It's interesting. There are some versions of it where it had the heart versus the spade or something in the middle of the number. They seem to have a lot of fun with those paint jobs there and kind of captured that. So the Harris branding on that. So, yeah, definitely kudos to the late Sam Bass and some of the designs he did on that as well. It has the original tag on here. This is interesting too. It has the Harris and the FoytRacing.com websites on the tag. I actually looked up Larry Foyt's website when I was doing the video, and for some reason it didn't go. It went to like a racing merch site. It even back in 2005, it wasn't going to a. It wasn't actually going to Larry Foyt's driver page. I was hoping to pull that up to get some additional information, but as far back as the Wayback Machine went, it never actually pulled the website up. So I don't know what happened with that, whether they got hacked or something, but that was a difficult issue there. But yeah, definitely got a kick out of this. I got the Harris branding on the back of it. I showed this a little bit in the video. So he's got the Velcro strap on the back of it there. Previous owner took really good care of it there. I haven't decided to wear this or not. I think with the tag, I'll probably just hang on to it there. Almost out of changing things up a little bit for the Clash coming up here. I have actually been working on some different changes there to my wardrobe for race day. So that's something else to kind of look forward to as well. Just kind of tweaking things a little bit here from one time to the next, keep things fresh. I guess you could say a next gen look for the last car thing there. I do plan on having the white hat being still part of the look there. I'm actually in the process of ordering a new one because the one from last year was pretty thoroughly used up. So we have that. The other one I have for the show and tell, of course, is the Larry Foyt 64 scale. Oh, goodness, that glare is not ideal. But I posted a picture of this on Twitter just before the show tonight, and I like that they put the road course or short track air dam or air dams, the brake ducts on the nose of the car there. So I thought that was actually, it shows a little bit, but it's not great out of the focal length there. Let's see. No, that's not good. Oh, a little bit. A little bit there. There you go. Boom. Oh, it almost got into focus there. There you go. I don't want to give too many people headaches at home. But yeah, really cool detail on this. They basically just ran the 2001 scheme. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. There we go. So this is interesting. I think it actually had the flaming spade on the 4 in 2001. This is the 2001 scheme with the stars on the bottom of it. They added the coins, the $1 gaming tokens, I think in 2002. But the Flaming Heart, I think, was more of the 2003 scheme. Unfortunately, it looks like they never actually made diecast of the Sam Bass designed 2003 scheme, which is too bad. I thought that one looked pretty cool, especially on a Dodge. What I think would be really cool, I'd probably order a custom of this maybe one of these days, would be the one that he ran at Homestead. I thought that was a perfect balance of the yellow one and the purple one. There's actually a close-up shot of it. I didn't put this in the video. That actually shows they had the AJ Foyt Racing logo on the hood of the car, which so that was kind of a nice touch. So that was pretty cool. All right. Okay. Polls are still open, I see. Okay. Yeah, no, 164 is about the only one I collect too. I have some 24 scale. I've dabbled in that in 143rd, but definitely the vast majority of mine is 64 scale. Also on that subject, big thanks to those of you. I don't know how many people were people that just follow it on Twitter or just people that just happen to go on eBay. But big thanks to those of you who picked up the 64 scale blind bags over the holidays. I hope you guys really enjoyed those. If any of those ended up being like stocking stuffers or something, I certainly hope those made somebody's day there as well. Yeah, those were a huge success, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. I think we ended up selling about 80 of those. I think there was 70 from the initial push, and then I dug out some more and sorted those out. And I got some more of the bags and everything. So we are now sold out of those at the moment. Just sold the last one, I think a couple days ago. I got to mail those out tomorrow and get those back out to you guys. But a big thanks to those of you who checked those out. I still have last car stickers and everything else on there for those of you that are interested in that. If you'd rather just pick up stickers that way instead of joining the Patreon, that's perfectly cool. So you have that all available still. But big thanks to those of you who checked that out as well there. That was very surprising, and I was very pleased with that too. So thank you so much on that. If you guys have anything else that you're interested in on the eBay page, I know Wookie has a good eBay page too, so he's doing that. That was kind of the reason I decided to start one too. But yeah, I got stuff on there as well for you guys to check out. So that's definitely still available on that. Yeah, Johnny Carlino. Yeah, I'm with you too. I should do a collection video. There's some of those that I really need to do. But yeah, that would be. I think what I needed to do. I did a video the other day actually on another thing for the $10 level in the Patreon. But I need to do something like that that's more available. Where yeah, it's more on some of the other diecasts in my collection there. I know I did a picture a while back of some ones that I had that were all last place finishers. I'll probably start with something like that and kind of go from there. But yeah. Yeah, is there a star with the flaming spade or heart on the car number, Tim Vision? Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't find any information on that. I think that was just a flare to just make it look cool. I haven't looked that much into the history of Hera's own branding. Obviously, it's got all the regular iconography of the rolling dice, the 777s, and so forth. So you kind of got that too. Why am I clearing out the 164s? Yeah, I was kind of going through my collection. Like, you know, I kind of had the same situation. I think like that, that Wookiee had there as well, where, you know, sometimes it just gets to be a little bit too much. I just finished a move a while back, and I was kind of going through ones where, you know, it's like, which ones do I like? Which ones do I just kind of, you know, have? And, you know, and I already kind of set ones aside as Patreon exclusive. So still, if you join the $10 level of the Patreon, I'll still you actually still receive a 64 scale blind bag just like those. So obviously I have reserves still set aside for that. But I got some requests for people who wanted some duplicates and other ones available. So I went ahead and just kind of made those publicly available. So anybody who wants those there. And I picked up some other, I did pick up a couple other ones that I was looking at that I was interested in picking up too. So, you know, I'll make, so I have done that, but, generally also just kind of keeping things going with everything there too. So, yeah, just, and also a way to just kind of offset the cost of, you know, buying the stickers and stuff like that too. That always helps out. So I try to sell them at pretty tight margins there because I wanted, you know, just kind of get that out. But yeah, I didn't think that they would sell that quickly. That was very, very surprising. Very surprising. I think if I tried to sell them for more, I don't think that would have worked out very well. So, but yeah, that was kind of the thought on that. Let's see. All right. We got a Ricky Rudd Piedmont 64 scale. There you go. So yeah, no, there's ones I really like that. Believe me, I'll do a video one of these days, and you'll get an idea. You'll see why I probably cleared some of that stuff out because there was some stuff, and it was all loose die cast. So it was like that was the thing. I have a box of like loose die. I'll probably start with that maybe even and go through that. But yeah, we'll see. So we'll figure it out. Any rate, so where are we with the categories? Where was it? Beast of Metal. Get some customs. Yeah, I get that. Alrighty. Oh, you got decals for his Dodge. Oh, right on, Joey. There you go. Yeah, again, I'm not sure what the history of the logo is, but that would be interesting. So, okay, I saw your comment earlier, Beast of Metal. Teams was leading with 3. NASCAR drivers and wild cards have 1 apiece. Do we have any change on that? Tyler Carpenter getting an opportunity in a truck. I'm not aware of that. I must have missed that. Did that news just come out today? I'm not aware of that. Let's see. I got a Monster Energy custom for Kurt Busch. There you go. Right on. Let's see. All right, we'll probably do teams. No changes. So teams is still the leader. All right, we'll probably do teams here then. No changes. Okay. All right, so we'll do teams here. We'll do a few questions here. Welcome in for those of you just coming in here. We'll go ahead and do some teams questions to wrap up the show for this evening. First question: what team did Dale Jarrett leave to join the newly formed Joe Gibbs team? What team did Dale Jarrett leave to join the newly formed Joe Gibbs team? Oh, he won. Oh, he won the Gateway Dirt National. Okay. He won. You mean for Knoxville, right? Because they got. Is Eldora coming back, or are they still doing Knoxville this year for the trucks? I'm not sure. But okay, interesting. Well, again, a lot of team turnover. There's going to be a lot. I think the article for the Truck and Xfinity Series team and driver change is probably going to be a mile long. So we'll look forward to that. I think the tentative date I set for that was February 15th. I'd probably post that. I think it's like the Monday or Tuesday of the week of the 500. So that'll be available a little bit earlier. Hopefully, with the Xfinity and Truck entry list to be available by then. If not, maybe I'll break up the Cup Series part of it and do another one later in the week. But that'll be one to look at. What team did Dale Jarrett leave to join the newly formed Joe Gibbs team? A lot of you got it. Indeed, it is the Wood Brothers. Oh, there you go. It's a little hard to read. Doot. Yeah, the glare's not that good. I'll probably leave that part out. The Wood Brothers, indeed. Alex Luft, it looks like you were the first one on that. Indeed. Some of you got it on the sponsors there, too. In what year did the Wood Brothers form a team? Another Wood Brothers question. In what year did the Wood Brothers form a team? We're looking for a year. In what year did the Wood Brothers form a team? That is the question. All right. What year did the Wood brothers form a team? Is the next question. Knoxville is still for the trucks. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't become a demolition derby. I'm with you there. Hey there, Racing World. Yep, off-season's been great. Thank you for joining in the stream here for sure. Yeah, been relaxing. Been productive, though, too. Been very productive. I know it's, again, I can't thank you guys enough for being patient there during the long wait it's been since the Andy Belmont video. I know it feels like forever to me, too, but yeah, we kind of jumped into Phoenix from there, then the holidays, but luckily between that, was able to get the 2 field fillers scripts done, 2 other short videos, including the Larry Foyt one done. Again, I'm still going to review the Sadler one before I actually record it, because that seemed to make the difference on the Larry Foyt one, and then hopefully we'll get going from there. So again, the question is, what year did the Wood brothers form a team? The answer is 1950. Okay. 1953. I'm not going to make you look at the glare there. 1953 is the correct answer. I would have guessed 1950 because I thought they did the throwback paint schemes that year with Elliott Sadler. But it says 53 is the correct answer. Yeah, see, those of you who got 1950, I would almost count that correct because I think that's probably the correct one. This one says 53. That's bizarre. Okay, no, not that one. Okay, here we go. Next question. Whose 1995 Food City 500 win gave Goodyear its Winston Cup win number 1000? Whose 1995 Food City 500 win gave Goodyear its Winston Cup win number 1000? Yeah, that does sound wrong. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it is 1950 because I think that otherwise that promotion in 2000 wouldn't make sense. It said 53. That's bizarre. Next question again. Whose 1995 Food City 500 win gave Goodyear its Winston Cup win number 1000? Just checking some other stuff here too. Yeah, actually, when I was selling the other 64 scales, I actually bought the Larry. I actually didn't have this in my collection, this Larry Foyt one, so that was something I kind of, like I said, for example, did that. So definitely picked that one up there. Always like to have something from this. I didn't collect that many Busch Series cars growing up, so mostly I had like other Cup cars or just like ones I used for the championship format. So a lot of the diecasts that I sold were either ones that were like, yeah, they're basically store-bought ones that I have for the championship grid that were out of date, ones I changed. I still like to keep older ones around because I don't like doing that much because it just gets really expensive. And of course, now this year, I mean, heck, I think we're probably going to just be using the 2021s for this year's championship format because I guess what? I mean, the diecast from this year, they're not even having those available till August, aren't they? Like, that's kind of the deal there. But yeah, back when I was like in college, like I bought entirely too many diecasts, entirely too many. Like that's how I was able to that's how I was able to sell those. So I'm glad I was able to sell them because there was a time where you just buy whatever is available. Nowadays, like it's got to be like really cool looking for me to pull the trigger on it. I'll tell you what, that's kind of been my thing. Yeah, Wikipedia says 1950 multiple times. I'm gonna go with that because yeah, I think they're right. I think this thing's just wrong on that one. So we've had some wrong questions on here before. But I get the question again. Whose 1995 Food City 500 win gave Goodyear its Winston Cup win number 1000? And a few of you got it. The answer is indeed Jeff Gordon. Okay, that's too much of a muscle memory to keep doing this Power Rangers thing with this thing. But yeah, kind of bring it a little lower. And it's still not great. Jeff Gordon is indeed the correct answer. Jeff Gordon is the correct answer. Who was first on that one? Joey MJ1, you put 24, so you got correct. Charles Peterson Jr. right behind. Joey MJ1, Johnny Carlino. Yep. Oh yeah, I'm still buying diecast too. Now there's no change in that. I mean, still the 64ths. Again, I remarked at this. I think this is, I mentioned this the other day. I think Phoenix last year was literally the first time that I have ever in my life gone to a NASCAR race and not gone to the souvenir haulers at outside at the track. I did go to the one outside the track. They had like the gypsy tents out there. We did go there for sure. Because that's where you find the really cool stuff. But yeah, the ones actually at the track, this is the first time I didn't even go to those. So yeah, Last Bro went by there. He got a program and everything, so he did that. But that was the first time I hadn't. So that was kind of the different thing there. But yeah, still, if I see like a diecast that looks good, like yeah, I'll still pull the trigger on. I think the latest one I picked up was Eric Jones in the Tide car. I thought that looked really nice. They did a really good job on that one. Yeah, but they did that. So, but nowadays, yeah, it's bizarre. They make so many variations of them, you know, that, yeah, like I still want to see who's the anchor sponsor. I see that's another term that's like popped up now. Like, you know, which one is the sponsor that's sponsoring the most races, which is the general paint scheme. That's what I always tend to trend to. But of course the Tide car, I think that one just stood out more. That one just looked good. Always a sucker for those. Let's see. Next question. What team did Randy Dorton build engines for in 1998? What team did Randy Dorton build engines for in 1998? Piece of metal. God. You can't bring up Krispy Kreme. I'll say this. I mean, this isn't really a movie review thing. I didn't mind the Power Rangers movie. Like, I know a lot of people were like, this is boring. Like, I liked it. I thought it was funny and it was campy and it was silly. And like, I know there's a lot of it that's spent with them just being just teenagers, but I thought they actually the characters kind of played off each other pretty well, which I didn't expect. I certainly didn't expect from that movie, but, I thought when it went full Metalocalypse in the third act, I thought it was just hilarious. So I didn't mind it. I mean, that's, you know, I wouldn't, that's not the hill I'm willing to die on, but I didn't think it was quite as bad as a lot of people made it out to be. But I didn't really grow up with the show. I mean, I was kind of talking about this with Last Bro the other day. You know, I mean, that was probably the first show where when I was growing up, they're like, well, this is kind of stupid. But, you know, I mean, you know, it wasn't for me, you know, it just wasn't for me. It was a different age group. That was probably towards the end of it, you know, so, you know, there's a wide swath of shows that, you know, I watched all the way before that. So, but that would probably be kind of the dividing point, probably watch more movies instead. Do I keep a list of trivia winners? You know, I haven't really done that. Yeah, I just kind of do this for fun. It's just questions or answer. We don't really even keep score or anything. So I know some people like to post like how many they get right and wrong. That's fine, but I keep it pretty loose on this end here. What team did Randy Dorton build engines for in 1998? The answer, and of course the answer is Hendrick Motorsports. So we got all those there too. I'm just gonna just keep doing this. I'll probably do that. All right, yeah, still Hendrick. What about Mortal Kombat? I liked that movie. The one that came out last year. I thought that one was fun. I thought that was funny as heck. I thought that was great. I thought the guy that did the guy with the laser eye, he kind of stole the show. I didn't mind that one. I mean, again, and I'm not talking the older ones. Like I didn't grow up really watching the older ones either. You know, the one with the Highlander in it and so forth. But I thought the new one was fine. Like everybody I like a movie where it's one of two things. Either it's an acting competition where you just kind of have like a couple like big name actors and they're all trying to just, no matter what the story is, they're just trying to outdo each other. Like they're just trying to act the hell out of whatever the line is. Or, you know, just a good maybe a character study or something where just you have just a lot of interesting characters that kind of have like their moments. Like every character kind of has a moment. And it sounds like that should be obvious. Like every movie has that, but every movie doesn't have that. Some movies don't have very big casts at all anymore. But in the Mortal Kombat one, I thought it was fine. I thought everybody kind of had, you know, it was I didn't think it was offensive or anything. I thought it was crazy and it was violent and it was stupid, and that's what I expected it to be, and that's okay. I mean, you know, we'll do another video on what's in this rack behind me here too, probably sometime. That'll give you a better idea of, like, you know, movies you usually watch at this point. I need to figure out a way to get this mobile. I have something better. I got a new table that I'm working with here that's working out, but yeah, we'll do something like that one of these days. Well, yeah, the older Mortal Kombat ones, yeah. I mean, I've never sat down and actually watched either of those all the way through. I love the Street Fighter one. I like the Street Fighter one with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I thought that one was hilarious. Because again, I don't have the highest expectations. Like, I mean, again, my taste in movies is all over the place though. Like I saw the Spider-Man movie, the new one that came out a couple weeks ago. It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. Like I like the Sam Raimi ones. I like the ones with Tobey Maguire, but you know, and I don't know. It just wasn't for me. Like I don't know. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan out there, but you know, it is what it is. I'm sure I say anything more than that, I'll probably get scuffled off YouTube here. Anyway, so next question here. Who bought out Carl Haas's half of the Haas Kranifus team for 1998? Who bought out Carl Haas's half of the Haas Kranifus team for 1998? Oh, yeah, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Yeah. No, that one was okay. That was fine. It was just a buddy movie or something. It was okay. I liked the what was it? Is that the Sat AM show? Which one was the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon with the great intro? Not the real slapdash kind of Rocko's Modern Life looking one, but the one that actually had like decent animation. Like I remember watching that. That was probably like, you know, wow, gosh, 93, 94. When was that? I was probably, well, I'm sure it was still in grade school at that time, but yeah, that was, yeah. I don't know if I'm nearly as excited about it as like Kamikaze Games is or something, but yeah. Gosh, this light makes it really difficult to see this. We'll have to keep tweaking our setup here. Who bought out Carl Haas's half of the Haas Kranifus team for 1998? And the answer is indeed Roger Penske. Roger Penske is the correct answer. And a lot of you got that one. Joey MJ1, there you go. Thank you, Matuz. I'm glad you liked the video. Thank you for joining in the chat here as well. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name there. Mr. Katarski. Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely got more Larry Foyt video up and more content on its way. Hermes Sadler is going to be the next video, as already announced back in the Andy Belmont episode, which was September. I think I posted that right before he went to Vegas. So that's yeah, I know it's been a while, but the wait will be well worth it. I'm very excited about this next episode of Field Fillers and the one after it. The one after it actually was pretty intense. I actually had to kind of go through a couple different driver and team profiles to kind of get it where I needed to go. So that's kind of where that goes. Sat AM. There you go. Yeah. Arguing Terra wasn't pure evil. Oh my gosh. I think I know what forum you're talking about. Beast of Metal. I think I might have known some people from there too. Yeah. That's, oh my gosh. Let's see. No, that one's too easy. Here we go. Who drove a whopping 175 races for Buck Baker from 1963 through 1966? Who drove a whopping 175 races for Buck Baker from 1963 through 1966? Batman the Animated Series is a little after my time, too. I loved Animaniacs. I like those. I mean, Warner Brothers, of course, had great cartoons. I remember the Disney Afternoon. That's how far I go back. I remember coming back from elementary school, and then, yeah, you have Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and Tailspin. And this is another thing that's really critical, and I don't know if it's a lost art with shows these days, because I don't watch a lot of the news stuff, is a lot of those shows had more memorable intros than the shows themselves, because the animation in the intros was really good. I remember Tailspin had a great intro. I remember Denver the Last Dinosaur had a great intro. Um, I mean, we're going outside Disney at that point, but like, these were some good ones. Like, yeah, and yeah, Batman the Animated Series is pretty cool, but that was a little after my time. That was, I mean, I know everybody loves that one, but yeah. But yeah, I grew up more on the Disney side of it there. That was kind of more the thing. We did, Tailspin, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck. And then, of course, we had Ducks growing up, and that was probably a big reason for that. So we had that too. But yeah. Cartoon chat here in the later stages of Behind the Wall. Who drove a whopping 175 races for Buck Baker from 1963 through 1966? Yeah, Tailspin. Tailspin's pretty cool. Tailspin had a kind of a fun concept. I like a show that plays with an idea a lot, and I like that taking the Jungle Book characters in a completely preposterous, different context. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Let's see. Who drove a whopping 175 races for Buck Baker from 1963 through 1966? The answer is Neil Castles. Neil Castles is the correct answer. I don't think anybody got that one. Neil Castles. I don't think anybody got that. Ned Jarrett, Tiny Lund, Vasily Podotsky. Oh gosh, Vasily Podkolzin. Beast of Metal. He gave me a good one this week. That's a good one. Neil Castles is the correct answer. Yeah, that's a surprising one. Neil Soapy Castles, most often known for running his own equipment, the 06, for many years. Woo. Yep, exactly. Yeah, you can't. It's hard to say DuckTales without that. Woohoo. Yeah, Neil Soapy Castles. I believe Dale Earnhardt drove for his team, the 06, early in his career, if I remember correctly. Ah, here we go. Here we go. Here's another one. This is a good one. What owner signed Joe Nemechek for Joe's first full NASCAR Winston Cup season? Don't look it up. Again, I haven't said that yet, but it usually goes without saying. What owner signed Joe Nemechek for Joe's first full NASCAR Winston Cup season? That's always I love that phrase, NASCAR Winston Cup. It just rolls off the tongue. NASCAR Winston Cup. You go down and then up. It works really well, just like the old ESPN broadcast. Uh-oh. The Arizona Cardinals not doing well. Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I guess we're in the Monday Night Football's time slot here. So yeah, apologies if you guys are checking out that there too. All right, that's why I made sure to schedule this a little bit earlier, but I figure we probably have different crowds anyway. So guesses for Sabatas, PPI, Larry Hedrick, Sabatas. Thank you, Nathaniel Ivey. I'm glad you like the new setup. This will be our setup for our regular weekly shows once the season gets started again. I'm going to try to shake the graphics up a little bit each week here. But probably the same template. Maybe just change the colors, put the name up there, have something to go with this. I've thought of adding some other little flourishes to this. We'll figure out what's happening. We got our LASCAR headquarters. Point. There it is in the corner. So we got all that. And yeah, new lighting. This has lights. You don't have to ask Bob Pockris. LASCAR headquarters does indeed have lights. So we do have that. I don't have the meme where I'm pointing behind me and then you can do that, or I guess he has it's got to be eyes down and then like this. So there you go. What owner signed Joe Nemechek for Joe's first full Winston Cup season? The answer is indeed Larry Hedrick, the late great Larry Hedrick, the number 41 entry. Charles Peterson, I think you were the first one to get that. Charles Peterson Jr., so good on you there. Rick Hendrick, very close, Joey MJ1, very, very close. Larry Hedrick, no relation to Rick Hendrick. It's a Cale Yarborough, Leroy Yarborough distinction. Very, very close. But yeah, always loved those 41 cars. Some of the best paint schemes ever ran. Ricky Craven's Kodiak car in 1995 is absolutely in top tier in my book for sure. So that's another one to talk about. Oh, you got WWE Raw tonight too? Okay, there you go. Charles, there you go. So we got all kinds of stuff going on tonight. All right, we'll probably just do a couple more questions here and then wrap up for the evening here. It's already been a long show. Oh gosh, we're already over 2 hours. Alrighty. That's the kind of thing. I'm using a different program here, of course, for the setup here, and so now the clock's like in a different corner. I'm used to looking at a different spot here. Okay, well, we'll wrap up here. What owner ended 3 years with various drivers by signing Lake Speed for 1995? What owner ended 3 years with various drivers by signing Lake Speed for 1995? What owner ended 3 years with various drivers by signing Lake Speed for 1995 is our next question. Maybe do like one more after this, probably wrap that up. Think the Packers will make the Super Bowl? Maybe. I'm still hoping the Bills do. If the Packers do, I mean, I think that would be a good matchup, but it'd be tricky. I'm very pleased with how the Bills looked. I know people are going to make a lot of excuses for the Patriots, that everybody's on COVID protocol or something else going on there, but hey, still. Everybody had to go through the same deal there. But Kansas City's going to be tough. Kansas City's going to be damn tough. Aren't they the ones that they lost to in the AFC Championship last year? I'm trying to remember. I blocked a lot of that game out of my memory. But I was wearing my Stephon Diggs jersey, as I tweeted yesterday. I'll probably be wearing that again. When's the game? Next Sunday night? I gotta check that again. That should be a good game. I hope they give him hell. So let's find out. I think Kansas City's a little vulnerable this year. They didn't look it yesterday against the Steelers, but Steelers were still able to put up some points. What owner ended 3 years with various drivers by signing Lake Speed for 1995? And the answer is indeed Harry Melling. Harry Melling is indeed the correct answer. A lot of you got that one. Melling is indeed the correct answer. Beast of Metal, it looks like you were the first one on that. I'm sorry, I missed your comment earlier. I saw you were getting my attention earlier about a comment that wasn't on there. Hopefully, I hope another comment wasn't blocked on that. I haven't had any issues seeing any other comments on here. Nothing that's really stood out. But it looks like your comments are still coming up okay. So fingers crossed. I've changed my setup here so the computer's now in front of me. So I hope I can actually see the chat a bit better, because before I had it to the right. Of course, you remember, those of you who are weekly viewers on here probably remember my show last August where I was rambling on about stuff in the news at the end, and all the while everybody's like, "Hey, Brock, Chris Buescher just got disqualified at Daytona," and I didn't look at it. I saw it right when I hit the end of the stream. But luckily now, and I'm trying to get in this habit, not only having the screen right in front of me, but also playing out the stream starting video. So yes, you will see it a third time today. Playing that at the end. So if I end up cutting the show off too soon, I at least have a cushion where I can look at the chat one more time and make sure I'm not missing anything, and I can cut back out of it again. So that's kind of the plan there too. So we'll be doing that, but that'll be the deal. That'll be the deal going forward. Anyway, let's get to the last question for this evening here. Here we go. This is a good question. What team owner drove relief for Richard Petty at Bristol in 1980? Let me read that one again. This is a good question. Don't look it up. What team owner drove relief for Richard Petty at Bristol in 1980? Yeah. Think about that one. I'll give you guys some extra time. That's our last question for this evening. I'll read it again. What team owner drove relief for Richard Petty at Bristol in 1980? Yes, number 3. You're absolutely getting, three for Dale. Absolutely. Whoop, it went out of focus there for a second. Man. What team owner drove relief for Richard Petty at Bristol in 1980? Yes, happy 100th birthday in heaven, Betty White. Prayers up. Absolutely. I probably should have given that the stream that name too. I don't know. Maybe something with Betty White, but yeah, that's absolutely. What team owner drove relief for Richard Petty at Bristol in 1980? Look at this. We got guesses for Rick Ware, Richard Childress, Lake Speed, Childress, Rudd. Okay, we got a lot of good guesses. Well, what's the correct answer? I'll give you guys just a couple more seconds here, and then we'll get the answer here and wrap up for this week's show. Thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show this evening. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed putting it on. Looking forward to doing these in the new season, and we will find out. Well, yeah, how many next gen? Who's gonna be the first next gen race winner here before too much longer? Now, well less than a month now. So here we go. What team owner drove relief for Richard Petty at Bristol in 1980? The answer is indeed Go Power Rangers. Richard Childress. Richard Childress is the correct answer. A lot of you guys got it. Richard Childress is indeed the correct answer. Beast of Metal looks like you were the first one to it. Auto Rocket Race in 94. Yeah, I was not aware of that, but that makes sense. That fits the timeline too. That's about the same time that Childress was still driving in the last couple years of his career as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. Definitely check out the story of Larry Foyt if you have not seen it already on this channel. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, whether it was 2 days or 3 days here for Dr. King's holiday here today. Definitely, if you want to check out more content, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/lastcaronbrock. More videos on this channel, my Twitter feed at lastcaronbrock. For more lukewarm and cold takes here that I think are hot takes, but probably aren't. And of course, more content at lastcar.info coming up very soon as well as our entry list storylines get up for the beginning of this next season. So until next time, we'll probably do our next show. I might want to squeeze one more in before we go to the Busch Clash. If not, our next show will certainly be after the Busch Clash. And we're getting down to the final stretch here. So stay tuned for more content. And stay safe. Have a good time out there, folks. And we'll be seeing you guys next time. So thank you so much for tuning in. Do it, Rockapella.